Picture a protagonist with limitless ambition. We're talking massive armies, transoceanic naval armadas, and a dramatic rise and fall that spans 1,000 years. Welcome to this cinematic explainer. Today, we're not just reading a textbook, we are diving straight into the sweeping, absolutely epic history of Rajendra Chola and an era of truly unprecedented conquest. Let's get right into it. So, here's the question for you. How exactly do you conquer an empire across the ocean? You know, in the ancient and medieval world, oceans were pretty much seen as massive walls, just impassable barriers sitting right at the edge of the map. But our protagonist, well, he didn't see a wall. Exactly 1,000 years ago, this Indian king looked out at the rolling, unpredictable sea, and instead of a boundary, he saw a highway. Literally a highway to absolute power. That is the incredible, crazy scale of vision we're dealing with here. We're talking about Rajendra Chola I, a ruler who launched these completely unprecedented blue water naval expeditions that fundamentally shifted the balance of power across all of South and Southeast Asia. Part 1. Rise of the Warrior King. Okay, so every epic needs an origin story, right? Our guy was born into the Chola Dynasty, which was this massive southern superpower sharing the stage with the Cheras and the Pandyas. Now, it was founded back in the 9th century by Vijayalaya Chola, so it was already a total powerhouse. But it was under Rajendra Chola I, who ruled from 1014 to 1044 AD, that this empire hit its absolute undeniable peak. And Rajendra didn't just inherit this massive throne and sit back. No, he fought for it, in the trenches right alongside his legendary father Rajaraja Chola I. After cutting his teeth by putting down rebellions in Chera and Pandya territories, he started looking outward. He didn't just conquer Ruhuna and Sri Lanka. He actually annexed vast archipelagos, locking down strategic oceanic islands like the Laccadives and Maldives. These would eventually become totally crucial naval bases for him. Part 2. March to the Ganges. Well, before Rajendra looked east across the sea, he looked north across the land. Between 1019 and 1021 AD, the Chola army executed this relentless, map-conquering progression. They marched right through Kalinga, defeating the Somavamsi dynasty. Then they pushed into Dandapani, taking down Dharmapala. And the grand climax of this expedition? Conquering Mahipala of the formidable Pala Empire in Bengal. Just to put that into perspective, this campaign crossed what is today modern Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, and Bengal. To even begin to understand how he conquered all that territory, you only need to look at one staggering number. This was actually recorded by his totally terrified rivals, the Western Chalukyas, in the Hottur inscription. 955,000. Nearly 1,000,000 men. Now, sure, historical numbers can sometimes be, exaggerated by rivals to emphasize the sheer havoc being caused. But even so, it paints this cinematic, awe-inspiring picture of a truly colossal force marching across the subcontinent. And why did he march all that way? Well, the Thiruvalangadu plates clarify the true military nature of this. Rajendra literally commanded his defeated northern kings to carry the holy waters of the Ganges River all the way back to his newly built capital. He poured it into a massive tank, creating what the plates beautifully call a liquid pillar of victory. He quite literally brought the mighty Ganges south to act as this ultimate symbol of his triumph. Part 3. The Great Eastern Armada. So, having conquered the land, Rajendra turned his gaze back to that oceanic highway we talked about. In 1025 AD, he launched a strike that was completely unprecedented in history. The ancient stones actually record it like this: who, having dispatched many ships in the midst of the rolling sea and having caught Sangrama Vijayatunga Vaman, the king of Kadaram, he basically sent this massive, unstoppable fleet right into the heart of the Srivijaya Empire in Southeast Asia. The sheer geographical reach of this overseas strike was just staggering. We are talking from Palembang in Sumatra to Kedah in Malaysia, striking Thailand, Myanmar, and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands along the way. India's earliest true blue water navy didn't just win a battle here. They dismantled an entire empire's monopoly on the trade routes to China. By doing this, they secured massive wealth and expanded their imperial influence across the sea. Part 4. Architect of an Empire. With the world seemingly at his feet, this golden age emerges, and we get to marvel at Chola culture, their trade, and their monumental architecture. To commemorate his epic victory at the Ganges, Rajendra took on the title Gangaikonda Cholapuram, and founded a brand new, heavily fortified capital city, Gangaikonda Cholapuram. It was deliberately designed to surpass even the grandeur of the previous capital, Tanjavur, and it served as the beating heart of the Chola Empire all the way until 1279 AD. Inside this new capital, he built the magnificent Gangaikonda Cholapuram temple, dedicated to Lord Shiva. And if you want to grasp the sheer majesty of this Dravidian architecture, just picture this measurement in your head: 13 feet. That is the height of the Shiva Lingam inside the sanctum. It is literally the largest of its kind among Shiva temples worldwide. Just a massive, awe-inspiring symbol of both deep religious devotion and unquestionable imperial might. Now, this intense organization extended down to the very villages they governed, specifically through something called the Kudavole system. This was a really fascinating early form of a transparent ballot system for village elections. Eligible names were written on palm leaves, placed in a pot, and then drawn publicly by a child. Now, to be objective, while this was heavily structured and audited, it was strictly exclusive to tax-paying landowners. So it excluded women, landless laborers, and lower castes. But still, it really highlights a highly organized, administratively complex society for the time. And that structured society fueled an absolutely booming economy. This was driven by powerful Tamil merchant guilds, groups like the Manigramam, the Ayavole, and the Nanadesis. These organized groups of merchants were the ones driving the maritime trade. They were exporting textiles and spices to China and West Asia and bringing back the vast wealth that funded the empire's grand temples and, of course, those massive armies. Part 5. Fall of the Cholas. But as we know, every empire, no matter how vast or golden, must eventually face its twilight. And the juxtaposition here is honestly tragic. At their peak under Rajendra, we see centralized power, immense wealth, and transoceanic naval dominance. But skip ahead to the 13th century, and weak leaders had taken the throne. This led to deep administrative inefficiency and the slow, agonizing bleeding away of their vast territories. So how exactly does a giant fall? Well, it's usually death by 1,000 cuts. Internally, the empire just rotted away through palace disputes, bitter succession rivalries, and deep corruption that infiltrated those once unstoppable armed forces. Then externally, they were being ground down by continuous, exhausting conflicts with regional powers like the Hoysalas and Kakatiyas. But most devastatingly, the fierce resurgence of their old rivals, the Pandyas. The final blow actually came when the Pandya king, Maravarman Sindhara Pandyan, defeated Kulothunga Chola III. He sacked the ancient, glorious city of Thanjavur and actually drove the Chola king into exile. By the late 13th century, rival powers and eventually the Delhi Sultanate had completely swallowed up their territories. And just like that, the once mighty Chola Empire faded into history. So it leaves us with this thought. If an empire capable of fielding nearly 1 million men, an empire that treated the rolling ocean like it was just a highway, can eventually vanish into the sands of time, what truly makes a legacy eternal? Rajendra Chola's audacious vision remains etched in stone and memory a full 1,000 years later. Keep questioning the past, and thanks for joining this explainer.